I understand that you don't have one.
Chair.
Okay. Welcome on this beautiful evening, afternoon, whatever. I'm Joanna Reagan. I'm on the board of the Purpose Community Foundation. And tonight we have a topic of great interest to us all, and it's been talked about a great deal. The status of Highway 4, Big Trees Road, the bridge road coming across, and I'm sure that we've all traded misinformation back and forth, and speculation and so on and it's going to be interesting to get a status on that. Before I do any introductions here, I want to thank the Masons for allowing us to use this building, and it looks like this is just right. Thank you. I want to, before I make the introductions, I would like to ask you to, because this is full of all kinds of issues and we have a number of people here who can answer questions about a lot of different things. What we need to do here, I think, is to focus on this specific issue. If you want to talk to somebody later or whatever it is, that's up to you. But right now, we don't want to go off in too many directions. Let's focus on what information we can get here and what kind of questions can be answered. And so, of course, you will have an opportunity to ask questions after we have heard from our guests here. We have from Caltrans, Dinah Bortner, Deputy District Director, District 10. We have Nelson Mazzano, District Permit Engineer. We have Robert Patton, County's Acting Public Works Director. And of course we have Tom Tryon, our Supervisor of District 4. And Tom had come to the Community Club just a little while ago and asked if we could help to facilitate a meeting to get people together. I know he's had a lot of questions and been working on this issue, and he just wanted an opportunity to talk to people and to allow other people to discuss it and for you to have your comments and ask questions. Tom, would you like to begin? Oh, all right, I'm sorry. I overlooked it. Please.
Oh.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I thank you very much for all of you being in attendance. As Joanna stated, there's been a lot of sort of comments and emails and the like. We had a community club meeting here last year on this same issue, and basically representations were made by all that the intersection would be completed within that construction season last year. Well, obviously that didn't happen. So I think that has sort of generated an additional level of frustration. It certainly did me and with other members of the community. But before I go further, I would like to make two other introductions. We also have Mason Godell with us, Mason Godell is with us over here, who is our Park and Recreation representative for District 4. We also have Bill Mason over here, who is our Planning Commissioner for District 4. I thank you both for being here. So I don't really have a lot more comments. I think maybe it would be appropriate for Robert to stand up and give you sort of a status on the county component of the project, and then Dinah to give us, and also give us a status report on the Caltrans component of the project, and then I think both will entertain questions that will be directed by Joanna of the Community Club. I've always tried to sort of include the Community Club because I think the Community Club is the best representative of the community as a whole. And they've always been such a strong club and active with a strong membership. And I just would like, on behalf of myself, to thank the Community Club for coming forward and saying, yes, they would sponsor this meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. This project has a pretty long history. It's tied to the improvements to Bret Harte Drive. Most of you may remember that at one time there was going to be an effort to move Bret Harte Drive away from Big Trees Road. The intersection with State Route 4 and Big Trees Road is a bit too close to the intersection of Bret Harte Drive with State Route 4. So years ago, there was going to be an effort to move that and also to improve Bret Harte Drive. There was a truck scale that was in the way of that project, and moving that intersection proved to be infeasible. Since that time, there was a project developed by the Kaus family, and that was the Fieldstone subdivision. When the Fieldstone subdivision came in, there was a requirement to make Bret Harte Drive with State Route 4 a right-in, right-out only intersection. Hopefully, in that way, they would solve the problem of that intersection too close with Big Trees Road and State Route 4. Before that became a right-in, right-out, the Kaus family went ahead and developed a couple of other properties. One is the Willow Creek Stone Ridge development that's currently, right now there's a few houses on that. And the other one is, I believe it's called the Murphy's Oak subdivision, and that's along the creek. The Willow Creek Stone Ridge subdivision was conditioned to have a new connection to Big Trees Road. That includes the bridge over Creek View and the connections around to Bret Harte Drive. As is the normal course of processing these developments, the developer entered into a subdivision agreement and had the map recorded a couple of years ago. That subdivision agreement required the developer to complete the improvements within a certain time frame. He has 1 year with a 1-year extension. That's what he's been working to complete the improvements. The year goes up, he completed a fair amount of the improvements and then has had some difficulty in finishing off the improvements. Right now, we're at about, I would say he's at about 99% done. We've communicated constantly with the developer, and as of, let's say, a few moments ago, he's perhaps a few weeks away from completing the bridge improvements, striping, and then the county portion of the road improvements would be complete for his development. So that's where we're at right now. And now I turn it over to Caltrans.
Where do I begin? From the Caltrans perspective, what our responsibilities are is to ensure that we, one, is make sure that the state highway operates for interregional traffic and also operates safely for local traffic. One of the things that we're required to do is assess development and look at development as it impacts the state highway, and as development impacts the state highway, require that those impacts are mitigated. We've been working with this applicant, the Kautzes, on this intersection for quite some time. They had requirements to do some widening, changing the free right turn They have requirements to make the Bret Hart Drive right in, right out, because that is too close to our intersection. And the intersection, if we have left turns in, we'll be backing up through the Big Trees, Tom Bell Road intersection, and so we end up with a breakdown of the state highway operations. Also, because of the change in volumes of traffic, the left turn lane to Big Trees Road needs to be extended. And we're working with the developer in good faith, trying to get this process moved along. And as we all rewind back a couple of years, development looked pretty rosy, selling houses. There was going to be houses sold, money was available. And then we got to the point in time where very quickly things changed. The other thing that we Caltrans are trying to do is to be sensitive about all the local needs, the local individuals' needs, the local citizens' needs, the local developers' needs. We want to make sure that as we address situations, that we address them understanding that there are other things out there besides our need for the state highway, and take it in a holistic standpoint. So we have been working with this developer, trying to get things buttoned up for winter last winter, trying to make sure that we could get through this particular development and change, and in the legal documents that we have with the applicant, there's a larger scope for this project, and currently looks like it's 99% finished. There is a left turn lane that needs to be extended that's not been extended. The developer met with the management in the district recently and asked for our consideration to defer that. And we are working and trying to come up with ways that we can defer that. We have an obligation to ensure that we are managing and maintaining the state highway system, and we own the tort liability. So if we have recognized an impact on the state highway system and we say that a developer is required to do it, and then we say, oh, never mind, heaven forbid there's an accident, we're sued, we're liable for not requiring an improvement that we knew was necessary. So we're trying to balance the recognition of the change in times, the recognition that the development isn't happening as quickly as everyone assumed it would happen when we began this journey. And we are trying to figure out how we can work together with the county that says we will delay this. The county, before you allow any more development, we need some more improvements on the highway forward. So that's probably more details than you all needed to know there. But other than that, I think what I heard is that there's a lot of concerns about other things, like pedestrian access. Would you like me to, I don't know whether you want me to just go into that and tell you what I know.
Go ahead and be as complete as you can, and then we'll fill it in.
Okay. We spent the last hour at that intersection, and it's not a clear pedestrian-friendly intersection. I'm trying to be as clear as I can.
I got a question, just to interrupt you for a minute so we can get on the topic real close.
Okay.
I'd like you to expand the pedestrian from pedestrian to also handicapped access in one whole topic.
Okay, will do. Will do. And I very much, in looking at it as a holistic topic, in that as we deal with pedestrians, we need to deal with, other ADA type compliant facilities where we deal with people in wheelchairs, we deal with people with visual, we deal with people with auditory disabilities. And in fact, one of the things I've asked the county is to request of us, because it opens doors for us, request that we do an ADA analysis of that intersection. And it's going to be, it's not a simple thing. I mean, it's not a simple thing, but it is something that we will do, and we will look at how you get from here to there. And one of the things we need the county to tell us is, where is the major traffic going? You know, where is the origin and destination of the people that need access to the best of our abilities, so that we can make sure that we manage the right movements. And I'm very concerned about that. There are funny things about that intersection. There's a wooden bridge. We don't, right now, we don't believe we own, Caltrans owns that wooden bridge. We don't know who owns it, but one of the things I have to do is get that area surveyed. Because it looks like there's a need, it looks like there's a well-used path there, but who owns that property? It looks like, and from Caltrans' perspective, when we look at an intersection, we typically connect in kind to facilities that the local agency, the city or the county, if they develop pedestrian facilities, we try to match in kind. But we don't initiate pedestrian facilities because in the department's perspective, that's depending upon what the local agency needs, and that need is not one that we are aware of. And it appears out here, as I look at it, that you've got certainly a strong developing need. So it needs to be addressed now. What we are committing to do is, one, after we get, well, we'll start it beforehand, but we've got commitment from the county that they're going to ask us to do an ADA accessibility request for pedestrian type traffic at that intersection. That will open doors for me as far as allowing me to put it in a higher priority in our workload. I'm going to find out where our right-of-way is. If part of what the pedestrians need is access over that wooden bridge, that wooden bridge might be on private property. I don't know what we can do about that, but we need to at least know what kind of animals we're dealing with there. And then the other thing I'm very concerned about that we'll need some of our specialists to look at is, in essence, it's like a five-legged intersection. There's some movements that may happen pretty quick.
Yes.
So where do we want to put the pedestrians to cross in the safest fashion that we can? And I don't know the answer to that as I look at it. I will need some analysis from our staff to figure out what makes sense there, because you do have some quick-moving traffic through that intersection. So that's about what I know.
Does any of this include bicycles?
Oh yeah, it would definitely include, as we would look at ADA access, you know, I'm hesitating, but yeah, but you want to make sure, generally a bicycle operates differently than a wheelchair, so yeah, it's generally a follow the rules of the road. But I would think the improvements we would make to ADA would certainly improve bicycle traffic. But I will, when I ask our folks to take a look at this, I'll indicate that bicycles are very interested in using this intersection also as safety.
That's interesting. Are there any other basic statements here from anyone else before we start going to questions? Does anyone else want to address anything that hasn't been brought up here? And then we can go to ask specific questions. No? Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to be sure we were kind of everybody. Tom, you got anything else you want to say this morning? Okay. Questions?
Just one quick point.
Sure.
The footbridge.
Yes.
look into your archives of your construction, sometime in the 60s, when the Murphy's bypass was put in. Because Highway 4 used to go down to where the store is, turn, and come back up the other way. And when Murphy's bypass was put in, where it is existing now, the sanitarium up there was in business, and they put that in so that people would walk across the highway bridge to get downtown. And I think if you look at the fence line, or where the fence line is, you'll see it's in Caltrans property. And when I came up here in '81, there was a time when Caltrans would go down there and fix some of the boards once in a while. Now, I can be corrected, if somebody here can remember better than that than I can, but I researched that. And that's, I hope that there's a couple of people here that are really interested in the handicap access, the county make sure they talk to them, because it has been a real problem. And one of the problems I really have with this thing is ADA is not something that you come back later and fix. You put that in the design, when it is set, and it should have been done before. Now, there was a curve, and I can't remember the street, what's the name of the street that goes across the bridge? The new
Crestfield.
Crestfield.
Creekside.
Oh, Creekside? Yeah, okay. On the eastern side of that road, for the longest time, where there was a square curve, there was a section of about 10 foot that was cut out. And I assumed at the time that was going to be a roll curb access for handicap off the bridge. But then when they completed it, they squared it off. So right now, the bridge is totally nobody can handle that bridge in a wheelchair because they can't get out unless they go up on the highway. And I hope that this is taken seriously because there are some major dangers here, especially where Cynthia Trades Realty is, where somebody could go up and push the little button, they'll go across to the car wash, go to Diggins, you go up with your back to the highway, or you go to Cynthia Trades outfit, come up there, wheel your chair into this little notch where the little silver button is, push the button. I know one lady here, she gets in there, she can't reach the button. And you go across the curb, there's no access there. And before all this intersection was done, there was a sign by the bank, El Dorado, that said pedestrians, they go to the crosswalk. So it was already guided. And I personally cannot believe that, the personal opinion though, that Caltrans, whoever designed this thing, had no thought of ADA, because that's something that has to be done. So, one more question, then I'm out of here, because I'd like to know when this thing is going to be so people can use it.
Yes.
Yeah, and so the fundamental question there, is the bridge open?
When's the
No.
bridge opening?
And
When is it
that
open?
intersection becomes handicap accessible, because right now people are blocked from using the whole place, which is wrong.
I can't tell you when, I can give you a commitment that I'm going to try to expedite it, but I really can't tell you when it will be. At this point, there are things like, what is conceptually the fix?
Would it help
I know.
if ADA works?
I'm the one that goes there every
Somebody's
day.
found their plan through the ADA. I mean, through the ADA. That push everything along a little bit?
The request from the county will.
No, I'm talking about it from the Americans Disability Act. So I can't fill it out. Some people think I have disability in my head, but no. But anyway, that's not the point. But the point is, the people who are handicapped are the ones who can fill out the complaint, and if they do, will that mean action will take place?
Actions, well,
I mean, really?
well, action's going to take place. How about if you give me a little time to see if I can come up with a proposal and a strategy, and if then that you're finding is not action enough.
I am the wrong person to be dealing with this. We need to have people who are actually in wheelchairs.
Behind you, turn around.
I'm out of here.
There you go, Bill. Move over.
My issue is the bridge. The bridge is fine for the two wheelchairs that seem to go through there all the time.
The wooden bridge?
Yeah, it's wide enough, it's fine. I had been cruising across that thing for years and kind of down, you know, parallel to the river. Then all of a sudden they put this curb in there.
Yeah.
And they curved it all out, and as soon as they did that, it completely blocked off my path to go get down to the supermarket. Now I have to go up onto the highway into the turn lane because there's not even a spot on the highway for a person to walk, let alone a person to roll and wheelchair.
I don't know how you would do it, having
She does just
looked at that.
Well, the Caltrans workers kept the one little spot that they saw me go through every day open until the very last day, and he was cementing it shut, and I said, "You're kidding me, you're gonna put a curb there." I said, "You can't just roll that thing flat so I can keep, you know, using this path." And he said, "It's not in the plans." You know, and somebody from the county came down and talked to me, and she said, that the state was blaming it on the county, that they didn't get it past the DDA, and the county was blaming the state, that the DDA never looked at any of this. But I'm thinking short-term solution, you know, somebody just come in with a bulldozer and kind of curb cut that one little spot in the path. I mean, to me, that's huge. I got grazed by a car the other day that was coming around the corner, and I was coming up, and he grazed the side of my wheelchair. So that it's an absolute waiting to happen.
I can't imagine you trying to do what you're trying to do. And also, I'll look for a short-term solution in a way that can at least give you some access. It does make me very nervous looking at how you get through that intersection. Where are you, I understand you're coming over the footbridge, but then where are you headed generally? Just in the
It's like a physical therapy across the street. There I go to the supermarket. I go downtown. You know,
So all points of that intersection.
Yeah.
you would be going through.
I know, but if you look where that bridge was, where we were walking, and then you walk down to the other bridge where it crosses, what there is there's a curb that was put in right there that goes all the way to that second bridge, that's the county bridge.
Yeah.
And that's where she gets stopped.
Right.
Because she can't access that.
There used to be a
Even if
free
we did
right
something
turn.
even if we did something on an interim basis, just for a wheelchair.
a ramp, you know, with a ramp.
Or not, you know, just take it out and get it level, so she can just go across there and go to this plan.
And there's another lady that's in a wheelchair. She's not here today either, but she goes down all the time too. And she's in a power wheelchair, which is much bigger than mine. And I think her issue was that they had me a little like alcove, kind of for wheelchairs to be able to hit the button and go across the street. But they curved that little alcove out too, so she can't get her wheelchair close enough to actually reach the button to get across the street.
Yeah,
So
I was a little surprised to see that too. Okay, I have some other comments, yes?
What is the disability act forgotten in this whole
Yeah.
narrative?
Yeah.
I don't understand. You can't build a building, you can't build a restroom, you can build nothing without considering disabled people. So I think it's shameful.
Okay, I'll try to answer that. I think for starters, the project, even though it was on the state highway, is, we have different processes in governments. Typically, when we have a highway improvement that's, where Caltrans is the project proponent, like the bypass, the there in Angels Camp, you know, that's a Caltrans project, and we manage it, we develop the project, we bring in all the stakeholders, we identify all the issues, such as ADA. But in this case, it's a little different. This is what we call an encroachment permit project, where the developer or a local agency or some another outside interest outside Caltrans is the project proponent. They own the project, but because it occurs in the state right of way, you have to apply for an encroachment permit to do the work in our highway. So in that respect, we're not directly in charge of the project, but we do have the responsibilities and the oversight. But I guess the issues are really initiated by the project proponent. In this case, it's the developer. And then we have the county intertwined in there too. So, and then at the same time, because it doesn't follow the usual project development process, where we go through some step-by-step processes, going through study reports, bringing in stakeholders and everything. The permit process is actually very, very fast. And we need to, because a lot of times when a developer comes in, their permit request, they've got, all these triggers they need to go to development, opening day, for example, and things like that. So there's a lot of pressure to move the project forward. So when they come in, they have their consultant design the intersection. We review it, but we only, and it's actually by law too. And that's the thing with regulation and policy and law. There's a lot of not contradictory, but competing. So we have a 60-day statute to review and approve the project. See, that's in the California. So we have that obligation to do. So it doesn't really give us a whole lot of time to have a public meeting and talk about stakeholders, talk about ADA. So then we just try to do we go through we do have policy that we follow. We have a manual, we have all that. So by the time we have the plan to approve, then the developer, the project goes out and goes to the intersection. But typically permit projects don't. This is kind of unusual actually to this magnitude. Typically we do driveways. Those sort of things. The intersections are pretty straightforward. But in this case, unfortunately, there were all these issues that we didn't have that. We couldn't facilitate that. We didn't have that.
That was then. This is now. I think before somebody gets hurt and you really have a mess on your hands, you better get together, these agencies, and fix the problem. That would be my suggestion.
Yes.
I didn't hear anything of what you said in the last 5 minutes that addresses ADA, why it wasn't done. I haven't heard that. I heard mitigate, Joe. I don't know what you said.
I think in the best of all worlds, it should happen. As I look at that intersection, to me, what I see is a confusion about whether pedestrian or ADA facilities are even acknowledged or not acknowledged. That's what's
Responsible for that.
Well, we are. Caltrans is responsible for that. So it's something that we're going to work towards fixing. And, I wish I had the rewind button and we wouldn't be here. That it would have all been handled right the first time, but it wasn't. I can see that there's a lot of things about that intersection that I'm not very happy about.
I was told actually when I met with the lady from the county down there that when the plans were made, there was a pedestrian route and an ADA route mapped out, which goes from over the new bridge, which is what you're supposed to do instead of going to the point, from maybe the way station to the grocery store. You're supposed to head up Bret Hart Drive, make a left onto Murphy's Creek, is that the new road? And then come down Creekview across the new bridge. So that was what they had mapped out as the pedestrian walkway and the ADA accessible route. But to let you know, there's hills there that are not the grade ADA, that are not, pushable. I can do it because I'm pretty athletic, but if somebody else came in with a wheelchair, they're not rated to ADA specifications. And really, who wants to push 3 blocks out of the way to go
Right.
1 block? I think it's really,
There's no shoulder.
really.
There's no shoulder there. I think it's clear that we have a serious problem there. The ADA requirements have not been met, and it needs to be.
It's going to be reviewed and
done.
I understand that the government is always responsible, but I think there's some culpability by the county also. And go forward. And that's one of the reasons we're having this meeting. So I guess the level of frustration. So I asked that this meeting be set up and Caltrans be invited and we get a turnout from the community club so we can see if we can get something that's a little bit better before we sign off on the intersection.
Okay, yes.
I have a different question. I understand that eventually Bret Hart is going to be right hand out onto Highway 4 or right hand in coming down Highway 4. Now, to me, that says if I want to go left up the hill out of Bret Hart, because I live in Meritage Estates and I use Bret Hart many times a day, I'm going to have to go down over the new bridge, and then if there's a lot of traffic, which you are predicting, and that's why we're changing the traffic pattern, how am I going to get across into the left-hand turn lane so that I can then turn left with the signal going up. Right now, the traffic can turn right and come down without really having to stop. We're going to have to look for pedestrians, and we're going to have a line of cars waiting to turn left or right when the signal changes. How long am I going to have to sit at the bridge with several people behind me? Wouldn't it be easier with the signal to just be able to continue to turn left off of Bret Harte going up the highway?
You've got two separate questions there. The left out, now how can I make this make sense? I know what the map looks like. The left out isn't the problem, it's the left in. So, and what I'm thinking through is there any way to make left out okay and not a left in?
That would be good. Why not?
And there might be. It's an awkward situation. The other one about the traffic coming through that intersection may, as that development occurs, the county may want to consider other traffic control measures like making that more of an intersection with a stop sign to keep that area where you would be waiting to make that left turn. You would have your turn as opposed to the traffic coming down from the center of town. The county may want to consider other traffic measures in that area.
Yeah, I guess my concern was the how we merge. When from the center of town is coming in, they want to go this way, and the people off the highways coming in, and then the people off the bridge. And I think it'll be a nightmare because you don't want to get into any accidents. Who has the right of way? That's going to be
The developer needs to complete that striping. Once all of the signage and striping is in place, we will see all year how that works.
there still is very trying to stop a lot of turns.
Yeah, I have a question. Originally, when this was all in the planning stage, wasn't there some sort of get-together between the county, the developer, and Caltrans, that all of this would have been on paper and you could have seen what was going to happen? It seems to me, from what I'm hearing, that everybody did their own thing. County tells me the development is 99% complete. From what you're saying, I would say there may be 70% complete.
Well, from the original plan. And we are actually, as I reported back, off the original plan.
Well, wasn't that agreed upon by everybody?
It definitely, we have conditions of approval from the county on the development, and the conditions of approval from the county say that Caltrans needs need to be addressed. Is there a time in the process that we all sit down and we look at the plans? Really, no, not in a development type process. When we're doing a state highway development with public money, and we're expending public money, we have a lot more requirements as far as making sure we do the public input. But when you've got developer funded, as Nelson was trying to explain, we have requirements on us to get these turned around, and yeah, I look it out there, and truly, I'm not happy with the looks of that.
Well, we're and all you need is one serious accident where there are more than one life involved, and it's going to be.
When you review projects, it sounds like the priorities within 60 days are to meet the developers' demands. And it sounds like they mean.
Well, that's absolutely true. In fact, if we don't,
I just want to, so that's my statement. And my question, I guess, is what is the hierarchy
priorities when you review something. And, you know, we've mentioned ADA, we've mentioned the developer, we've mentioned your liability as Caltrans, but what's the priority there?
I don't really know.
It sounds to me like we gotta get these developers in 60 days.
In regular law states that if we don't approve it by default, their permit isn't approved. So we work really hard to try to catch as much as we can. But in 60 days, if the law states, if we can't review and get it done in 60 days, the permit is by default approved. So we're working real hard to try to find as much as we can find. And it's not an ideal process.
Yeah. I have a question that might be more directed towards Tom Tryon. In the end, this area belongs to the county, and Caltrans is just kind of passing through. And they're a good partner as we develop what we choose to accept for our community. So we have our own standards for what we believe our circulation should look like. And so I can't help but think about the general plan. Does the general plan set a set of standards, a set of implementation measures that help us get to a standard process so that we're not at this point in the future? And I mean, a lot of what we're talking about here is the process, not the actual design. And you know, we all want to see progress. We all want to see these things
The
happen.
county and the general plan will have a circulation element which will show what we would like roads to be and where the roads are and what we wish to have them maintained and we have the level of service, etc. We have implementation measures and they're in the road ordinance to say, you know, what your paving has to look like, what your width has to look like, you know, all the road conditions that go, and that we review the development by, and then meet those road conditions. So your answer to that is yes. The second half of the question is how does Caltrans fit into that? Quite frankly, Caltrans is not just passing through the state of California. Like it or not, Caltrans County is a member of part of the state of California. And we're a subdivision of our state government, and we abide by the laws that the state legislature passes. And normally what happens when a development comes in, the planning department reviews it, they send it out to the other agencies, such as Public Works, and say, you know, this is what's being proposed for your road requirements. Public Works, and they pull out the road ordinance, then it goes into circulation, then it says this is a sort of a set of conditions, and then it goes to Public Works, and they say, well, we have to have this to the road standards, etc. And then they say, you know, if you're in a community center or the like, they say, well, then, you know, it goes out to the sewer department, and we get a well-served letter from the sewer department, and it goes out to the Public Works department, and we get a well-served letter from the Public Works, or excuse me, from the water department. We don't go into these departments and figure out how they run, and if it has any impact upon state routes, whether it be 4 or 49 or 26 or whatever, we say, you know, you have to meet conditions of Caltrans, and that's how we condition it. And so they run with their map like this, and they run over to Caltrans and say, you know, this is what we're doing. Caltrans, like the county, will say, well, gee, we want a traffic study, and we want, you know, different things that you require of developers, so that Caltrans will then condition the project. But the county doesn't get involved in the Caltrans conditioning anymore. They get involved in the sewer district conditioning or the water district conditioning or other types of conditioning. And we say, well, when will we get together? Well, this is when we get together, and we finally, you know, we get Caltrans to come up and look at the intersection and say, you know, we have a problem, and we go out and we solve that problem. And I think that's what's going to come out of this meeting. That's my hope of what will come out of that meeting. You know, there's a lot of sort of territorial issues here, just like water and sewer districts don't want the county to come in and decide what their capacities are. They just want us to accept the well-served letter. And Caltrans is really interested in county showing up to Caltrans's office and deciding, what should happen in the Caltrans right away. That's what Caltrans is. I mean, we don't communicate, and we have communicated. And that doesn't mean some things didn't get overlooked. They obviously did. And hopefully we're not so late in the process that we can't address the issues that I think most of us feel need to be addressed. And one of them is the ADA and pedestrian
Yes, but
issues.
we, as a county, we believe in ADA.
What?
I mean, as a county, we believe in ADA, we
Well, ADA
abide by.
is federal law, so.
Right, and we also, I would say, that based on what people are saying here today, we believe in it. So I would think the county would have a hand in that, it would be part of the general plan, and it would just not be overlooked by the county. That's all,
Well,
that's
the
all.
county does ADA issues when the county's involved. If you ask for a building permit, at Murphy's, and you want to open a store or something, the county goes down and it's your historical district or something, and they look and they decide, are you meeting the ADA conditions for a bathroom? And quite frankly, people can talk about the wonderfulness of ADA, and in many instances it's very good, particularly on the issues we're addressing here. But if you want to look at the greatest destroyer of small mom and pop businesses, the ADA companies is what small and pop businesses business right now, because it's extremely expensive to meet those kinds of conditions. But that's considerably different than an intersection and those sort of things when you get into the small mom and pop businesses.
I wanted to add something to that. For Murphy's, you do have a plan in place. It's called the Murphy's Circulation Pedestrian Parking Plan. That was adopted a few years ago. In my responsibility in public works, every time I look at a project that's in Murphy's, I make sure that the requirements that are within that plan are applied to each project. In that regard, we have requirements on the Couch family projects that they do provide sidewalks, the pedestrian and bike facilities, and that they be compliant. I have the conditions of approval here, and I'm sure somewhere in here I could even read this to you. One of the conditions says, in lieu of sidewalks, developers may propose an alternate pedestrian path subject to public works approval. The alternate path shall be designed to be functionally equal to sidewalks serving every lot and meeting ADA design standards. So when it comes to what's within the county's area, we are careful to make those requirements, but those requirements, as far as I could go, reach the county right-of-way. When we enter into the state right-of-way, then it turns over to Caltrans for them to put in those requirements and to make sure that those get carried on.
I have a question on how my thought process has been right along with what you guys have been talking about here. Where does the Caltrans sphere of influence, or where does that end in regards to the road that goes out towards Diggins? I can't remember the name of that, but thank you. Big Trees Road. How far down Big Trees Road from the end of the new sidewalk does your sphere of influence go? And how does that get integrated with county work? Are we going to end up, if the state says to put a curb in, are we going to end up with a nice ADA curb that will land somebody onto the gravel next to the old barn? And what are they going to do then? So how does that stuff get integrated? And what responsibilities would the county have in public works to finish that off, so that the reasonableness of what gets done and what gets required wins out? Because it seems to me we could have a sidewalk to nowhere. Really easy.
From the county's perspective, we can jump in here. Nelson, Dana's basically committed to going out and getting some surveys done so we can figure out where the county starts and Caltrans ends. But generally what happens on new development, it's happened here. The developer puts the bridge in and then extends the sidewalk to the end of the property. And if you go out there and look, generally the right of way, I suspect it's the case here, is right where the telephone and power poles are. If you look at where the sidewalk ends, it ends at the developer's property, which is on the developer's property, because the county road goes right to the county, the trees goes right to the county right of way. So what generally happens is then when the next property owner, the household, if he develops, then the county will say, well, you have to take it from where where the House family ended it and take it to the end of the household property, which would probably be all the way to Main Street and then around Main Street to where the household property ends. But if you don't do that, then you're in a position of eminent domain. None of us particularly like eminent domain. If we were to tell the House family, geez, we want you to continue right where that sidewalk is and not stick it out on county road, because the county road basically goes to those telephone poles, then you're basically into having to buy private property under the threat of eminent domain or through eminent domain itself. So the county basically doesn't do that. It's extremely expensive when you do eminent domain, and it's extremely controversial. So how it's generally done is you take it to the end of your property line. That's what it is. So,
I think the only thing I can add to that is I try to diagnose just briefly what happened out here. This whole project could have benefited from a whole lot of communication between Caltrans and the county. Caltrans does not require the installation on all of our state highways with the thousands and thousands and thousands of miles of highways that we have. We don't have and install upgraded pedestrian facilities on everything. They are upgraded as we are meeting with the local agencies. What Tom's telling me is the county is requiring new development to develop the pedestrian facilities. So generally on a state highway, if it's a normal intersection, Caltrans has to the curb return. You take the curb return and then it starts going tangent. That's as far as our limits go. We don't go any further. We generally maintain the striping on the stop bar. If there's a stop sign and the stop bar at an intersection with the state highway and a county road, we generally maintain that. If you look at that intersection before this project went in, it likely didn't appear to us that there were pedestrian facilities accommodated at this intersection. But I can't even fully say that with a straight face because of that funny curve thing right near the push button that I don't know who was thinking what on that.
Well, who put it in?
It was installed by a developer and a contractor under our nose. You know, we did the oversight. So I can't blame anybody else. I would love to, but we can't blame anybody else.
that was actually put in when the signalization of the intersection was done. Either the crosswalk in the county house or a crosswalk. Crosswalk. The bridge, where it's used, but it's a crosswalk that doesn't have the continuing infrastructure that the crosswalk should have.
That's one quick follow-up question. At the end of the curve, where I saw you folks down with my friend or Mike today, is there going to be a crosswalk right there? Is the county planning across Big Trees Road any kind of crosswalk for pedestrians and or wheelchairs, etc., to get over to where the real estate office is from the bridge side? If you're on the right-hand side of the road where the sidewalk is, and
that probably obviously going to have to be looked at. It's not being current.
Yeah. Mike, well, I understand the history of what's going on here, and you said earlier deferment of this, finishing this project. And I think that's my concern today is the fact that we're hearing all these issues, but now you're talking about deferment and not finishing this project off. So and allowing that to happen, and it's like that's not going to help us.
No, that's let me clarify that point. Not
deferring finishing this project. This project, for all intents and purposes, will be completed. It'll be completed slightly different than our original plan, where we had the left turn pocket for the eastbound traffic, left turn onto Big Trees Road. That pocket in the final go-round with the development you have out there needs to be 150 or 200 feet longer to handle the storage of the traffic. Because the development's not happening and there's a decline in the economy and the Department of Caltrans has been requested to look at, do we really need all this stuff right now? We are considering eliminating that extension. Everything else should be completed.
What kind of time are we talking about?
It should happen very soon, and there's not much left.
And then all these other important issues, the ADA issues, just the general, some really major design issues will be reviewed and take another run at it, so to speak, but we will have an open bridge area that, that will be in place, and we will go forward with that.
The best I can tell you now is that I am going to ask for one. I've got to get some surveying done to find the property, because part of the pedestrian wheelchair access, I'm understanding, is coming across the wooden bridge. Some of that is not our property, so we need to look at that piece. Then, after we understand where the property is, I'm going to ask some of our engineering experts that deal with these things to develop a pedestrian wheelchair access at this intersection. It's not easy. Then, I have to find out some of it's county responsibility, some of it's state responsibility. We have requirements to make sure that money is spent in the appropriate ways. Then we're going to be talking to the county about what funding we can find and asking them, can we develop a funding plan for whatever the strategy is. That's what I can tell you that I can.
So how long are you predicting that to take, that process?
Oh, it's probably going to be, other than I really need to get the wheelchair access that has been taken out. I need to get that done right.
Right.
I don't know, but the other part of it, I'm hoping I can have something back to the community within 3 months. It's not going to be fixed, but it's going to be a plan. Yes.
The traffic coming westbound on Highway 4 coming down and stops, the signal supposed to stop, and then they often turn right and the trees and covers and all that. Is there a possibility in the short term fix possibly requiring, I think, no turn on right or something, because that's probably no turn on red. Possibly, just slow, so we get this feature called and fix the turn on fix for the future. Because that's where the pedestrians are, that's where the kind of cross, taking a risk or life to cross from one side or the other, where the state for like the feed store sign or the river state sign. I can slow the traffic down.
I can check into that.
Just a suggestion.
Yes, just a comment regarding that left lane turn that you said that has to be taken longer. Because the properties aren't selling right now, and I understand your argument, but I think when I look at all the developments that have happened, they were so immediate, there's not enough planning for the future, because the properties are going to sell eventually, and what's going to happen then? Are you going to extend it then? Why not go ahead and plan for an extension anyway while you're doing everything?
We are planning for an extension.
Well, I meant for that long,
You should defer it.
70%.
They're going to defer that.
Yeah.
That's 150 feet is required for the full build-out of the planned subdivisions in this area. At this point,
what Council's appeal to us is it fair to require us to build this now when it's years down the road that will be necessary?
I understand that. That's what happens. Years down the road, people say, why didn't you plan for it way back then? You know, so that's what I'm saying. This is a comment.
Yeah, I just have a comment to make. School gets out in 6 weeks, and we're talking about the ADA, but I'm also speaking on behalf of the children. We will have kids going walking to the pool, going all over the place, so that has to be a consideration as well. We come out of Meritage and we walk, and even when I'm with my children, I feel the danger when we have to cross Big Tree Road, just trying to, there's cars taking that right turn coming down the hill from Arnold. And so just to kind of put more urgency to it, there will be so many kids out on that road trying to navigate their way through that.
The no right turn on
Yes.
There's a context here that maybe you don't understand. That stoplight, we have one line, one grocery store, one post office, and a big school. And that's where everything is for Murphy. And it's all there.
It's all
we
the
talk
same.
about the lumber trucks and we talk about the traffic, but what we're talking about is the neighborhood issue.
Got one quick follow-up question.
Yes.
I've heard several different things here, and one of the main reasons I understood that this meeting was to find out when the bridge is going to open. I heard everything else discussed. I heard Caltrans say that the only thing left for the bridge is for the developer to stripe it.
No, that's.
And then we've talked about 16 other things. Is the bridge ever going to open? And what is that going to take? Because somebody has come out there and re-barricaded it about 4 times. Is that a question on the floor? Are we talking about that bridge to nowhere?
That, we've been communicating with the developer constantly, asking the same question, and the latest word is that within the next few weeks, the final items on that bridge will be completed. I say next few weeks, I'm thinking about 2 to 3 weeks, right?
Yes.
Yes?
Oh, yeah, he's hiding back there.
Does that mean striping?
That,
Yes.
striping also.
That mean open the bridge.
And what?
I have a question to answer that, fellas. One of the reasons, Joanne has held that up, is that we can't open that intersection until Caltrans signs off on their intersection. We can't keep Caltrans intersection on Highway 4 with that additional traffic until you tell us that we can. So I guess where is it? It's a punch list that's not very long and not very expensive to finish the county infrastructure requirements. So we walked out, all of us, and looked at the bridge. And I believe it's this Thursday or next Thursday that Caltrans structural engineer is coming up, because the Caltrans structural engineer also has to sign off on that bridge. When is he coming?
He has his people for the bridge coming this Thursday.
Okay, before the bridge can open, Caltrans structural engineer has to come
We
out.
do have a developer here. Jack, do you want to answer this?
No, I can just answer my part. As far as the developments, we're required to do plans for Caltrans and for the county. I have an engineer that designs these plans. These plans get turned in to the different agencies. They approve these plans, and we build these plans to the approved plans, build these roads to the approved plans. So I pretty much, I don't want to say I'm out of it. I'll take a lot of the blame because a lot of the striping, there's been a lot of details between Caltrans and I going back and forth, and a lot of stuff between the county and I. And so anyway, the striping, I think last meeting we were over there. It was going to be 2 weeks away, and it was an issue between Caltrans and I, and we're still working out some details. But now I think that we have answers to how we're going to open the intersection finally. The striping will be done. George Reed will be back in, hopefully this week or next week, to do the striping. The bridge issues that Robert Packager was talking about, Very, very minor. One's expansion joint that has styrofoam, if I say that right, in the expansion joint it needs caulking. So, I mean, you take out the styrofoam, you caulk it. That's one of the punch list items. So there's some very minor items there. And then it's going to be a coordination between Caltrans, the county, and whoever. You know, we open the bridge and then the pork chop goes in, or the intersection has to go logistically first, you know, sign it off with the stripes, and then we open the bridge. I'm just doing the striping, and then it's going to be coordinated between the two agencies.
Is that mean that is opening the bridge then separate from the ADA? Once that's done, is that open and these are other problems that will then be addressed?
I do want to.
When we open the bridge, Caltrans intersection has to be able to accept the traffic, number one. Also, a condition of Caltrans is, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, when we open the bridge, we have to, at that point, take Red Hart Drive, right turn in and right turn out. So, because we're dumping additional traffic into that intersection. That's what Jackie refers to as the pork chop.
I'm sorry, pork chop.
However, what is it?
That's the
Pork chop, yes, no, it's pork chop.
Because it looks like
Pork
a
chop.
pork chop.
One other thing I'll put out to the community is that I did ask Public Works, interim director Mike Miller, whom the current interim director took over for, is there's a lot of signage there. And when it goes to right turn in and right turn out, that's where all those advertising signs are going to go away. They are in the county right away. The previous interim director said they were in the county right away. Public Works was instructed to notify the business on the signs that the signs are going away from right turn in and right turn out. Gets done, so there's a lot of real, almost sort of homemade efforts there, and that's going to go. That will also go away when the right turn in and right turn out is done. Is that correct? Okay.
So it sounds like the answer to the question is they are linked, and just striping, you just can't open it because all of this affects this, which affects this. So it sounds like the opening a bridge is tied into all these other things.
Well, it's tied into Caltrans intersection. There's very little to do to open the intersection at this point. It's just a question of the developer doing it. I mean, the developer can say it's minor.
But you just said that it would impact traffic, which impacts Caltrans part. So yes or no, just yes or no, when the striping is in, will the bridge open?
No.
Well, it depends whether the striping is the last thing to be done, the bridge will open. But it has to happen concurrent with Caltrans saying, yes, you can open
and is there a yes?
And the right turn in and right turn out on Red Hart Drive has to be done.
But all this other ADA and all of the
No, that does not have to be
crosswalks are
done to open the
separate?
intersection.
Well,
That's not.
I thought somebody made an excellent point earlier, that if you make Red Hart right in and right out, you've dumped a whole bunch of traffic on that bridge.
We don't want that.
And she just said they'd look at making a left turn in there,
I've
or a
got
left out.
because I can't answer the question as I'm sitting here, is there a way, I know we can't make left ins.
The left out would
but
change a lot of traffic.
Left out, I've got to have that analyzed, and I'm committed to have that analyzed. And that'll have to happen within the next day or so, because right now the critical path, on the critical path is getting that bridge approved. Now, from the Caltrans encroachment permit standpoint, that bridge is not part of our issue from an encroachment permit. But Caltrans, the big organization Caltrans, has responsibility for all bridges in the state, whether they are state-owned or locally owned. And this is a locally owned bridge. And so our structures people are having to approve that structure. But it's outside of what we are doing with the encroachment permit.
So it hasn't been approved yet, even by your people?
By the folks, our structures experts, they're going through the process of finalizing the approval of that bridge.
Yeah, just to provide a little more breadth to the question that the two ladies here have, and that is, as Bob said, when we first formed the benefit case, with our benefit case, it was mostly to be Caltrans requirement to improve the intersection. The idea was to move the intersection further up the hill, away from the Redhart, away from the Highway 4 intersection. We could not do it because the scale was there. We could not move the scale. It was well over $1 million to move the scale. Highway Patrol went ballistic because that's the only place they had where they could do logging trucks. They had to do the logging trucks prior to Harris Ferry Road, and it just couldn't get done. And so then we made an agreement with Caltrans that we would come up with an alternate route. I think what we're all talking about is that alternate route and when to open it. The original agreement with Caltrans was when that alternate route was opened, that Red Hart Drive would be closed, period. It wouldn't be right in and right out. It wouldn't be going left. It would be totally closed. And the county negotiated with Caltrans here fairly recently with the approval of the Slash project for that, the developers doing the current infrastructure. With that development approval, negotiations were entered with Caltrans, and Caltrans agreed to at this time, not require that the Red Hart Drive intersection be totally closed. And so they gave us, I think, something by saying it can be right turn in and right turn out. And if they can give us left turn out, that would be good also.
That would be great.
But just remember, and then, you say, well, it's going to put traffic on the new intersection. Well, that's what it was built for. That's where the traffic was supposed to go, because at that point, when it was designed, we were going to totally close Red Hart Drive altogether. So the whole intent was to put the traffic down. That was the intent, and that was the approval process, and that's what Caltrans is making the developer design to, is to build out the Red Hart benefit basin and make those traffic counts work in that intersection. So that's how we ended up where we are today. Excuse me.
Let me ask a question on behalf of those of us who try to interact with the government, from the various governments. You have said that, that you're not happy with what you see there, okay? And you say that you have some problems, that maybe Caltrans didn't do everything just right. And Tom is saying, well, maybe the county didn't do everything just right. What is the impediment for these organizations to work together? Why does it take 2 years for this conversation to take place? Why does it take that long for you to walk the intersection and to answer these questions? Why?
Well, I think part of it is if you look at everything we do in all the corners of the world that we're working in, it's not everything happens the way it should. It would be great if it was a perfect world. Government is, tries, I think, and I think most of us in government really try to be servants of the people. We try to protect what we're hired to protect. We try to look out for the public interest, and sometimes it all doesn't go that well. You guys have been living it here closely. I live in Lodi. Why it didn't come to my attention until now and come up here and take a look at it, I don't know what could have happened differently to have that happen, but it's not, there's no ill intent. It's how much goes on in the world, I think, and how much we're trying to take care of.
Sure. Let me add something to that. One of the things, I guess you could say a difficulty that we in public service have in dealing with projects like this is that our responsibility and the way we protect the public's interest is by applying the codes and so forth and so on. And our codes have a certain requirements on the templates and different things that the developer is supposed to meet when he presents a proposal. What we don't get involved in is the design aspect of the development. We don't tell how he's going to have his streets in a certain way or all that. That's entirely his vision. But the developer's vision is supposed to be consistent with the general plans, in this case, the Murphy's circulation parking, pedestrian plan, the county codes and so forth and so on. And so when we review these projects, we make sure that they meet those codes, and he met the codes. There was some maybe...
That doesn't address my question.
Not at all.
And it's the kind of thing that just infuriates people. When you ask a simple question and you get this gobbledygook. We don't care what your problems are. We don't care that you're all over the state. Well, I assume that's because you asked to be. But we are also part of the state. You know, we may not be Lodi, but we are Murphys. Okay?
Nobody wrote a letter that said.
So we should complain more?
Well,
Yeah, that's what she's saying.
Okay, then we should complain more.
Let's get the record straight on that before we head off into the trying time of everybody's busy and nobody's doing the job. In August of '08, I called a gal named Mary Bush, who was the overseer for Caltrans here, and talked to her about all the problems. After I talked to Charlie and another gal, I can't think of her name, who run wheelchairs around here, okay? And I explained to her all the problems of the intersection. And I also called, I don't know what I didn't bring your notes with me, a gal in Washington, D.C., who's in with the ADA. And you know what the first question that she asked me? When I told her about this intersection up here that was absolutely blocked all handicap access, she said, do you think the state of California has some federal money in their highway building right now? And I said, sure they are. And the next question she asked me was, are you handicapped? And I said, no, they're only in my brain. And she said, well, you have no standing with the law. You have to be. So, all I would like to have this done is when you make your notes that you start this thing in August of '08, not today.
That's right.
What we have here is a failure to communicate.
Now, talk to Mary Bush. She was up here doing the work. I talked to another guy who was a permit guy. I have his card at home, but I can't remember his name either. And we had the conversation about this last in the summer.
I made several calls.
Yeah, and
All
so...
kinds of people too, and yes, needed that, county, state, yes. Well, we put an accessible bathroom up at the way station for you.
Let's get on this.
We've been living with this for the better part of 2 years. And I came here tonight thinking I would hear some answers. And all I heard is, bureaucracy is alive and well, they're finger pointing. And I hear, well, it's going to be striped in the next few weeks. And we were told that over 6 months ago. And you continue on, well, we've got to do this and we've got to do that. The next thing is, 2 years from now, we'll be here again talking about this intersection. And I'm fed up, I really am. Bureaucracy is alive and well, and you guys have proven it.
Jack, did you have another comment?
I just had a statement, and it's regarding the ADA. I'm not in charge of designing plans or approving plans or anything, but I just want you to know that I apologize for what has gone on, and that it isn't up to ADA standards. I hope that is rectified.
Are you responsible? You're not responsible for the curb though, are you?
I'm responsible for putting in what has been approved.
Oh.
And I just build it, it's engineered, and I get a set of
Do you have
plans.
a bulldozer?
What's that?
Do you have a bulldozer?
Several.
We can fix it. Like cloud because of your curb? Just fix it. On accident?
Okay, we're gonna, we need to close this up. 2 more questions.
On my road, and the emails we received back and forth to this town here, one of the clients was that they a deadline of June 30th to finish this project. And I don't know who signed that, I apologize, I don't know. Is that a valid date? Is that something we keep, everyone wants answers? I received that one of the emails. That was a doer or what else, I'm not sure what you do, to get it complete, which has to be done. But Caltrans is giving them June 30th to finish the project. Is that still a date out there? Is it like, how much it doesn't do it by June 30th?
His encroachment permit expires June 30th.
So is that a date that we can all go
No,
with?
he has the right to ask for a continuance, and that's one of the reasons I asked for this meeting, so Caltrans would understand the importance of
June
this.
30th, this is an arbitrary date.
Well, it's not arbitrary, and if something's worked out on the stack of the left turn lane, the continuation of the left turn lane, it should be able to, should certainly be able to keep that. That hasn't been worked out in
I think it's very doable. One thing I can't speak to is the bridge. You know, I have no knowledge of what's going on regarding the evaluation of the bridge. I'm hearing that it's just another one. We agree on it. No, these are our people out of Sacramento.
We agree on the 60 days from now on the meeting for an update on that?
Hopefully it'll be done so that.
Yes, this is the last one you have.
It's a statement and a question. You say that it will take you 3 months to create a proposal. And in my mind, when I see a proposal, I see somebody sort of off in a desk off in the corner somewhere working in a column on the phone. But it's pretty obvious that communication is key here, hands-on communication. Jack Coutts is back there and he's saying he's sorry for what's happened and that he hires engineers to do this. I know that the Coutts name is far more important than many things here in terms of influence. And I know that that's really important, that they work with you and that they work with the county to get this job done. Then you can bring these people together and make it happen. If you're the one that writes the proposal, then I would challenge you to be sure that the key parties are involved in this proposal and that we do have an answer back here in 3 months.
The proposal that I'm referring to does not include the opening of the intersection. That's going to be a study on pedestrian and ADA access. We can open the intersection itself. Prior to that, I basically agreed to look and see if we can do some interim measures for ADA, particularly wheelchair, prior to the study being completed. So there is some difference between opening the intersection and having a final implementable plan to do that. I'd just like to say it's closing. I thank all of you for being here. I wouldn't get too carried away with who has a great amount of influence, because quite frankly, we would just as soon have an extension and not have a meeting. So we're all here. The county has been pushing hard for the completion of this project. The county is very much aware of how the citizens feel and how I feel about the project. And also, I'd like to answer Scott Reagan's question a little bit, and that is, when these projects come through, we deal with Caltrans at a certain level. We're very fortunate because we ask and Diana is the deputy director of Caltrans for District 10. I believe she's in charge of maintenance and operations. So we have a person right on the directors. You can't have somebody sort of like that and be going around changing the perception of district. Important, as others pointed out, there's been a fair amount of contact and interaction with Caltrans itself at other levels. To the extent that we haven't been really happy with that, we have somebody that is somebody too in the department with us. They represent visit with us and make some commitments to us. Thank you very much on behalf of the community and the county and also coming out and participating in meetings such as this. I see Don Bose in the back. Don gave me a call, wondering if we could do something about landscaping that area, between the road and the creek. And I mentioned that to Donna when we were out at the reviewing the intersection. And Donna basically said, well, let's get the survey done and figure out who owns what, where the boundaries are, etc. And maybe we can work out something. Hopefully we do something. Those completes our comments. Thank you, everybody.